And so what's that mean? How do you trust in Hashem? Also, it fits with our times. Also, it fits with the time of year, to talk about this idea, because Pesach, I mentioned this on Shabbat, the guys that were here. Pesach is the time of when the nation formed and came with us as a nation, this sort of sense of trust, of faith that we have inside us. And it's really inside us. From the time we got out of Mitzrayim, we became an It started really with Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu was, the great Mamin, the person of great faith and trust. And we became a nation, so the whole nation got that quality, And now, in the period of Sfirata Omer, because we learned this in Rav Kook on Shabbat, that we're building up that basic faith and trust, getting ready to receive the Torah, because it's the basis of receiving the Torah. It's sort of the foundation. So Rabbi Nachman says like this. This is the beginning of Sichot around the conversations of Rabbi Nachman, that his student, Rabbi Natan, with photographic memory, wrote down. So these are the words of Rabbi Nachman, basically. Tov ma'od lahashlich atzmo al Hashem yitbarach l'smok alav. It's very good to throw oneself on Hashem and to depend on Him. V'darki, my way is, kishba hayom, when the day comes, beginning of the day, ani moser kol ha'tenuot sheli v'shel banai v'teluyim bi al Hashem yitbarach. I give over all of my actions, all of my movements, and those of my children and those that depend on me, to Hashem. I put it all on Hashem. In other words, you wake up in the morning, you have to decide what's going to be with my day, how am I going to navigate it, how are things going to turn out. So Rabbi Nachman says, I give it over to Hashem. That's the first thing. He even says, I give over my family to Hashem, which is interesting. So we'll talk about this. That everything should be like Hashem's will. I give over to Him that everything should come out the way He wants. Like Hashem's in charge. So I tell Hashem that I'm giving over to you I'm letting you guide us. I'm putting it into your hands. Everything should be according to your will. And this is a very good thing. It's a very good thing to do, Rabbi Nachman says. Gamazai, because then, ein sark lidog, v'lachshov kla. After that, you don't have to worry and to think at all. Im mitnaheg karoi im lav, if you're doing the right thing or not. Me'acher, because shesamach alav yitbarach, because you're depending on Hashem. So when you put yourself into Hashem's hand, then you don't have to keep rethinking things all the time and keep worrying whether you're doing the right thing or not. V'imhu yitbarach rotze be'inyan acher. And if Hashem wants in a different way, humrutzeh, I'm not sure why it switches into a third person, but it's the same flow. Humrutzeh litnaeg be'inyan acher, kirtzono yitbarach. Then He'll be willing to switch in a different way, to behave in a different way according to Hashem's ratzon. Okay, so that's the first part. So it says like this. So Rabbi Nachman says, so this is very poetic and interesting. We need to try to understand it. So he says, it's good to put yourself on Hashem. Give yourself over to Hashem's leadership, guidance. And every day when I get up in the morning, so what I do is I give myself over, all my actions, all my motions, I give them over, myself and my children and those that depend on me, I give them all over to Hashem. That everything should be according to His will. And this is a very good thing. And then when I do that, once this is done, then I don't have to worry anymore. Then I can relax. I can be free from anxiety about whether I'm doing the right thing or not, because I'm depending on Hashem. And so that's describing his the way He comes into the day. And then He says, and if at a certain point, Hashem wants me to do something different from what it seems like He wants me to do, then I'll do that. Okay. So far, that's the first idea here, which we need to work on this. Now, and he goes further. V'kein kishmagia Shabbat o Yom Tov. Also, when we reach Shabbat or Yom Tov, azai ani moser kol hitnagut kol inyanim v'tenuot shel oto haShabbat o Yom Tov l'Hashem Tbarach. then I give over all of the conduct and all the matters and all the motions of that Shabbat or Yom Tov, I give them over to Hashem. So it's the same thing. The problem is, Shia HaKol Kirtzon, everyone should be according to his will Yitbarach. In other words, when you come into Shabbat and Yom Tov, also you're not exactly sure how you're going to navigate it. It's like a lofty time, a challenging time. You want to do the right thing. You want to get into it. You want to succeed to serve Hashem properly with Shabbos and Yom Tov. And so he says, then also I do the same thing. Before I go into Shabbat, before I go into Yom Tov, I say, I give myself over to Hashem, and that everything should be the way you want it to be. I put myself into Hashem's hand, that it should be the way He wants. That's what he says. Va'az, v'zai eich shemitnaheg boto Shabbat v'Yom Tov. Shuv einu choshev v'choshesh klal shem lo yatsa yedei chovato. And then after that, whoever things come out, however he behaves, however I conduct myself during that Shabbat and Yom Tov, I'm not thinking about it anymore or worrying about whether I'm going in the right direction, doing the right thing. Or maybe I didn't fulfill my obligation properly. B'nahagas kedusha she'oto yom, in fulfilling the holiness of that day. Me'achar kavar masara kol Hashem yitbarach, because I already gave it all over to Hashem. V'samach alav yitbarach levad, and I depended on Hashem alone. Okay. So this is Rabbi Nachman, which his words are always are very fascinating. He says something interesting. Has like a poetic. In fact, somebody put this to a song. There's a beautiful song. Someone made out of this piece in the Sikh Aharon.
Please perform.
No, I can't. He changed the words a little. I can't do it. It's very, very beautiful. I'll tell you the niggin. It's very. The niggin is like this. Yeah 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 die 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 die. Yeah 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 yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful song. My Moshe Levi, he lives in Beit Shemesh. Anyway, so he says like this. So this is really, what do you guys think about? I want to discuss this, and I can't tell you that I know exactly what Rabbi Nachman is saying. I just have some kind of idea about it, and we'll work on it together. I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. So what does it mean that you put yourself into Hashem's hand, that He should guide you the way according to His will, Like, what does that mean? How do you put yourself into Hashem's hands? What does that look like? What does it look like in your head? Yeah.
So I think a lot of the times, I don't know other people, but I know me for sure. I'm chasing after a lot of kavod and all sorts of things like that. So a lot of times in my life, I'm like very much holding on to like go with this idea that I have, that what I want to do and what is my will and what I want to have happen, and walking down that path, which for me is very defined, is very like set out and defined. And maybe what he's talking about is just letting go and allowing whatever happens to happen and calling it, giving yourself over to Hashem's will. Maybe, I don't know.
That's so interesting what you're saying. I mean, I was with you until the end. So you're saying that giving yourself over to Hashem and trusting the Hashem to like guide you in the way that He wants you to means letting go of your personal kavod,
right,
your very specific goals of how things are supposed to be.
Maybe.
But then what you said in the end, so then I have a question on that. You're saying they're sort of going, what does that mean? Then what? Then what do you do? So what do you do? Does it mean you go with the flow?
So it's not necessarily giving up your goals, maybe, but maybe giving up... maybe it's just letting go of certain ideas that you hold on to in your head.
Okay, and then what?
It's not necessarily, doesn't have anything
right,
to do with your
okay.
actions.
Okay.
It has everything to do more with these ideas that you have.
But you're only saying it's a negative. But what is the positive? How do you put yourself into Hashem's hands?
No, because it's a relief when you give yourself over to.
So that's what you want to say. Okay, you're saying that it's getting free from the assumptions that are getting free from something, getting free from kind of rigidity of your mind.
Or maybe take back what I said at first. What at first I don't think was exactly what I was trying to say. Maybe what it is there's, through, we defend ourselves, going through life, through using our ego, right? And having this idea about who we are,
okay,
and what we believe.
Okay.
And we hold on to this as we walk through the world, as a way of like defending ourselves from things.
A self-image type of thing.
All those kind of things.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
But in order, I think maybe what he's talking about is you have to like let yourself be destroyed. And just walk through the world without holding on to those kind of things. Now, and it doesn't mean that your actions are actually changing, but just the way that you see what you're doing maybe in the world is changing.
Very interesting. Okay, amazing. Okay, those are very interesting. Yeshua, what do you say?
I think maybe one of the risks of that interpretation is being too impressionable. So I think maybe a prerequisite to giving yourself over to Hashem is first having a requisite knowledge of the Torah and knowing in which channel to do that, like in which direction to go into. If you just give yourself over, but you don't know what you're giving yourself over to, then that also could be dangerous.
That's very interesting. So you're saying that there's assumed here that he has this knowledge of Torah, which is what he's giving himself over to and letting go.
Like when you're going into Shabbat, you want to give yourself into Shabbat, but you have to do it within understanding which malacha you can do and how to live in Shabbat.
Okay, that's interesting also.
So.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah,
All right.
kind of along.
You go first.
Thank you. Kind of along the lines of what Chaim was saying, maybe. Sort of like leaving the things that are out of your control, like recognizing it's out of your control, you can't do anything about it, and trusting Hashem that it's up to you, and the rest is like why worry about it.
Okay, that's interesting also. Yeah.
So to build up on the idea I was going again with relation to Shabbat, there's a lot there that we can do. If you happen to be late half an hour for a Shabbat dinner, and you're late for half an hour, you don't call each other, you don't contact each other. It's just how it is. You gotta let go of trying to always meet demands that we make from each other in life. And I think for me, one example was when my adoptive family, we decided to go to the Great Synagogue in Yerushalayim one morning. And I didn't have a Tav Yarok, and at this time, and it was a requirement, I just didn't have it printed. Yeah, I didn't have it printed. I thought somebody said to me, like, well, you could still, in theory, print it. You're not Jewish yet, I'm not Jewish. I said, no, this is, I have to break my Shabbat. I do have to do it, and I do it by making Heflay towards the end of Shabbat. But I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to go on my computer and print this stuff. Yeah, well, if it so happens to be that I should be there, then that's the way it is. And if not, then that's also the way it's going to go. So I went that morning. I walked to the Great Synagogue. And this is the mindset I had. And there was a line of people in front of me, and they were all refused entry. And then it was my turn, and I explained to the guard, look, I have Tav Yarok, I didn't succeed to print it. He looked at me and said, yeah, it's okay. I said, good.
Okay, that's very good. Oh, very nice. Very good story. I hear that. Okay, that's interesting. It's a little bit similar to what we said. Okay, very good. So, okay, anyone else? It's very mysterious, very interesting, it's very deep. Okay, so we're saying that, so you guys are saying that, I'm hearing from this that we have presuppositions about how things are supposed to be. Also, we have like attachment to things working out in a certain way, right? We have a self-image, which locks us into limitations, which we could let go of maybe. Those are very interesting ideas, very good ones. Okay, also I like what Chaim said in the beginning. Chaim said two things also. He talked about honor, like we seek honor, we make a calculation how to get things, and we actually have some kind of personal honor in mind or in the back of our minds. Also talked about ego. Okay, very interesting. Those are all seem to be, they all seem to be in here, sort of, So now let me tell you what I thought about this, which is not so different. And I'm going to answer Rabbi Nachman with another place in Rabbi Nachman over here. So look at this. Going down to Likutei Moharan, Tinyana Yud Beis, the next piece. This is a really famous piece. It's called Ayeh Makom Kavodo, it's called. So this is the beginning of it. Kisha Adam holech acher sichlo v'chachmato. When a person goes after his intelligence and his wisdom, yuchal lipol bateutim umikcholot rabim. He can fall into many mistakes and stumblings. V'lavo lidei ra'ot grolot. And he will come to many bad things. Chas v'shalom. V'yesh kilkulo harbe. Many people did a lot of damage with this, with going after their own mind. Kagon, Hirshayim Hagadolim, Ma'od, Hamaforsim, like the famous evil leaders, in history. Shehitu et olam. They confused the world. They fooled people, like big numbers. A false Mashiach or a bad king or people like that, right? And all was because of their depending on their personal intellect. Okay, so that's the first thing. So that's a very interesting sort of little schmooze here. And Chaim mentioned this idea that Rabbi Nachman saying that you have to be careful of your thinking, and not latch on to thoughts that come into your mind that seem to be the right thing necessarily, and go after them and go after them. You have to be careful of your own personal thought, you could say, or the way things appear to you, and like sort of a response which you're following, which something seems really right to you. I'll give you another example. Let's say someone like the communist leaders, so they have an idea about how they think things are supposed to go, and they follow their thinking all the way in, and they become leaders with these great ideas which sound great, and end up they're not too great. They're terrible sometimes. And other kinds of thinking that people have, it comes from somewhere, some kind of thoughts that seem to people, and you follow that, it ends up to be very problematic. You could have a false leader like that. He's so strong in his convictions. He's so convincing, but it all comes from his own thinking. There's something missing here. Okay. Vikar Yahudut. So therefore, what's the essential Judaism? What's Judaism really about? Hurak leilech b'tamimut ubepshitut. That's to go with simplicity, with purity and simplicity. Bli shum chokmot, without calculations. Listakel b'kol davar she'oseh. He should look at everything he does. Sheyeh sham Hashem yitbarach. That Hashem should be there. Livli lashkia klal al kavod atzmo. He shouldn't be concerned about his personal honor. Rak im yesh bezeh kavod Hashem yitbarach. When he goes to decide whether to do something or not, he should see whether there is honor to Hashem in this thing. Yaseh, then he should do it. Vim lav, lav. If there's not honor to Hashem, he shouldn't do it. Vaz bevadai lo yikashel ilam. And if he takes this approach, he'll never stumble. Okay. So here Rabbi Nachman is saying also a very interesting thing. So it seems to me like what he's saying is that, let me start from the last part. We're talking about what it means to mimut. Now it's really, the mitzvah in the Torah, it says, Tamim tiyeh im Hashem lokecha. You'll be pure with Hashem. It's a positive mitzvah. And it means don't calculate too much. Don't think about the results too much. Because you have to do what's right. And what's going to happen in the future, like Hashem will take care of that. That's sort of the idea that's brought along with that mitzvah. Tamim tiyeh, you'll be pure with Hashem. You don't have to figure everything out. You have to make sure you're doing what Hashem wants you to do. The right thing, Also, we talk about Yaakov Avinu being like that. Yaakov Avinu, very interesting. Yaakov Avinu is called Ish Tam. This word Tam, Tamimus, pure. He was called the Ish Tam. That was his greatness. He had this purity of intention, which is interesting. Sometimes it included manipulations, which is very interesting also, right? But so Rabbi Nachman is talking about going with tamimut, with purity and simplicity. And he says, he first defines it here in a very interesting way. What's purity and simplicity? So he defines it as you should think, does Hashem want me to do this? Is there kavod, is there honor for Hashem in the particular thing that I'm doing, or not? And you should put your own honor on the side and think about Hashem's honor. If you after asking that question, you conclude, yes, Hashem would like me to do this, so you should do it. If after you ask that question, you said there's no honor for Hashem in this, even though you really want to do it for some other reason, you don't do it. So that's what Rabbi Nachman is calling tamimut and pshitut, being simple and pure. And as opposed to that, he's saying, on the other hand, going after your intelligence is a problem. So Rabbi Nachman's into intelligence, that's for sure. He's into being smart and wise and deep. But there's something called going after intelligence, which means that you're not asking this question. You're not saying, will this bring honor to Hashem or not? You have some kind of a formula in your mind that this is very important, that this should be done. And it's very likely that subconsciously you're pursuing your personal honor, your personal gain, and you might have framed it up in your mind as something that's very important to do, That's what he's saying. Like all the great leaders, all the great leaders that misled people, the famous bad leaders, they were like this. They could explain their thinking, down to the T, and they probably believed it, and other people believed it, and it wasn't true. It wasn't with this calculation of is this what Hashem is there is honor to Hashem or not. This is going to save the world. This is going to make people happy. This is going to do something good. This is going to fix the economic imbalance in the world, or the racial imbalance, or whatever people are trying to fix. With their thinking, and they don't have a simplicity in it. So it seems to me that that's similar to what he's saying, Rabbi Nachman saying in Sikhat Aharon. I think that the two things go together. That's my idea. Chaim said this. Really, that's the first thing you said, and it seems to me that that's the way I want to move. Also, it doesn't exclude the other ones, but he says I get up in the morning, and I say to myself, give myself over to Hashem. So it sort of sounds like, it's interesting, when you first read it, it sounds like you're going to go with the flow. It sounds like Rabbi Nachman is telling you like the 60s, I think some people might read it like that. Like, the 60s, they used to say, if it feels good, do it, And it sounds like he's saying that, I'm going to give you over to you, Hashem, and then I'm not going to worry, and everything will be all right. I'll go with the flow, go follow my feelings. I'll follow what, I'll just be happy. I'll just do the right thing. He's not saying that. And of course he's not, because it's not true. You can't just follow your feelings. You can't just go with the flow. That's not the right. So what does it mean? So here I think he's explaining. He's saying, I make this sort of calculation like, what do you want, Hashem? What's good for you? And which will bring honor to you, Hashem. And then I'm going to try to do that. And even though I may not know exactly how to do it, and I may not be doing it on the highest level, I'm depending on you, Hashem, to help me. Because I'm trying to do what you want. And you run the world, So I'm going to put your honor first, Hashem, as well as I can. I'm going to depend on you to help me to do that. So it's sort of trusting in Hashem. Once I do my part to remove my ego or my personal honor, think about what does Hashem want? What's good for Hashem? What's honor for Hashem? So then I can have the trust that I'm okay, And even though, of course, we have so much to work out in our inner psychology, we all have. We know our self-knowledge is limited. And we all have ulterior motives, which we're always trying to sort out and work through. They always exist, Someone who thinks he doesn't have any hidden motives or, subconscious thinking, affecting him, he's naive, because we all have that. But it seems like Rabbi Nachman is saying, I'm not going to worry about that too much. I'm going to depend on you to help me, Hashem. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try to do something for your honor, Hashem. And that's the trust I'm going to put myself into your hands, and you're going to guide me, Hashem. And then I'm okay. Do I have to examine myself 20 times? Am I doing it the right thing? Is it going to work? Is something going to get in the way? Are my intentions okay? I'm going to say, you know what? That's I'm going to have trust in you, Hashem, to guide me into this. That's going to work out. I'll give you an example. Let's say a guy comes to Machon Meir, and he wants to learn Torah. And then let's say it's hard, Let's say he doesn't feel like it, He doesn't feel like sitting that many hours, or he feels like he's not used to it, and he's feeling uncomfortable. So then a person can say to himself, you know what, Hashem, I'm going to put you in charge. I'm here because it seems to me like this will bring honor to you, Hashem, that I'll learn Torah, and I'll do my best. And, if I need to take a break, if I need to have diversion, so I'll take diversion, But I'll put this whole thing into your hand, If I need to arrange my Seder in a certain way that I can manage it. But the idea is I'm not doing it because of my honor. I'm not doing it because of my, because it feels good every moment. I'm doing it because this will bring honor to you, Hashem. And then things will work out. When you calm yourself down in that way, you free yourself from all that self-pressure and anxiety and predispositions that things have to be a certain way and not another way. This is a big problem that people have. They have expectations. Things should be a certain way, Other people should behave in a certain way. I should succeed at a certain level. All these kind of things. But what if the whole point is, I want to bring honor to you, Hashem, to the best of my ability, So then everything gets simpler, it seems like, right? I don't know if I told you this story. I heard a story once from Wine says a story. You know who Wine is? He's an American rabbi, famous. He now lives in Rehavia. He's an older Rav, very famous, but great writer and talker. So he describes, he used to work for the OU, which is the big kashrut organization in America. It's a big Jewish organization with a lot of...
It's more
What?
than just kashrus. It's more than just
More than just kashrus, right. So the story, he was working for OU, and there was the head of the organization was a very special Talmid Chacham, who was his mentor, Reb Wine's mentor. And he describes him with reverence. So he said he used to see sometimes that people come in with schemes. Because the OU was very powerful, influential, a lot of money. People come with schemes how to do something not exactly straight. They wanted OU to support them to do something which was not 100%, kosher, yeah, exactly. So he says what would happen is they would tell the Rav their plan, their idea. He would sit and listen very carefully to everything they said. So and he would say afterwards, he would say, okay, everything you says makes sense. It sounds like good plans, but I only have one question for you. They say, well, what? He says, what would God say? And then that would be the end of the discussion. So that's an example of this. Okay, so let's go further now. Okay, so that's what seems to be saying. Now I want to learn Rav Kook on this. So this is a very interesting type of discussion. In this piece, Rabbi Nachman talks, after this, he talks about when a person does go in the wrong direction. It's a famous piece about messing up and how even that's part of the big plan. And in the end, if you even fall to a low place because you went after your own thinking, you can come to, how he describes how to come out of that. And that's a very interesting piece over there. But I find it's very, very fascinating that he defines what it means to be pure. It means ask yourself this question. Is this what Hashem wants or not? And if it is, do it. If it's not, don't do it. If this will bring honor to Hashem, that's more specific what he says. So I think that's what Rabbi Nachman's sort of saying also. When I go into Shabbos and Yom Tov, I say to myself, I say to Hashem, I'm putting myself in your hands. I'm going to try to do what brings honor to you. I'm trying to serve you through Shabbos and Yom Tov the best way I can. And you'll make it work. Okay, going further. Here it is, Rav Kook. Shlemot Adam Taloi, V'sher yeh lo matara siklit nichbada v'kol magamat panav. He says, the perfection of the person depends on that there should be for him a very clear intellectual goal, a lofty intellectual goal. The kol magamat panav, for everywhere he faces. Upu'ulot b'chaim, everything he does in life, all of his intentions in life, there should be an overriding goal for it all. There should be something which he's always moving towards. Like, let's say you're on a ship, so you navigate to the North Star. So a person has to have his North Star, like in everything you do. Rabbi Nachman says. Rav Kook says. V'tachlit hasichli elyon hazeh, and this ultimate goal, klaluhu chachmenu elokim, they categorize it, the divine sages, our godly sages, ba'amram, when they said, Kol masecha yu l'shem shemayim. All of your actions should be for the sake of heaven. Kedivrei harambam b'shmona prakim al erech hamaymer hazeh, and like the words of the Rambam in relation to this above statement of the sages, shechavru hafilosofim sefarim b'shelet hatachlit. The Rambam says, throughout the generations, the philosophers asked this question: what should be the ultimate goal of an individual, of a person in life? And he says they never exactly came to a conclusion. What's the goal of life? V'heimzal, but the sages, Zikron Levracha, of blessed memory, Sipru Lana b'kitzur nimratz hazeh et kol. The sages did discover it. And this is it. This one phrase, Kol masecha yu l'shem shemayim, all of your actions should be for the sake of heaven, that's it. That's what all the philosophers were searching for the generation. That idea, that's it. That's what you should be focused on. That's your North Star. That should be the thing that you're trying to do the whole time. All of your actions should be for the sake of heaven. And when a person have this intellectual end goal, second page, then the feelings of his heart v'shifotav, and his aspirations, al pizota tudah hanichbada. They will follow this bigger goal. V'al pizeh yisader gam ken kol masav l'tachlit hanichbad. And then he'll organize all of his actions around this bigger goal. V'zoihu adam shalem shekol chalakav sichlo richotav upulotav kulam hochim yasher l'tachlit shlemut hanushi. Okay, so let me just speak this out again. Then all of his intelligence, his thoughts, his feelings, his actions, they will all go towards this ultimate goal, the ultimate goal of the human beings. So Rav Kook saying like this, that the perfection of a person is that when he has one overreaching goal, apart from all of his intermediate goals, that he should have one big goal where everything is connecting into that goal. A very clear, intellectually defined goal. And he says, this is what the sages meant when they said all of your actions should be for the sake of heaven. For the sake of that goal. That's the ultimate goal. And the Rambam says that this is what the philosophers are always trying to figure out. Like, what is the purpose of life? And the sages summed it up in this little phrase. All of your intention, all of your actions should be for the sake of heaven. That's the ultimate goal. And then when a person has a goal like this, a clarity, when a person has this as his goal, then what happens is all of his feelings and of his thinking and his actions, they'll all be he'll be able to organize them towards this bigger goal. Yeah, okay. So that's so far. I want to tell you another story also. I think I may have told you this before. Something I heard from about Reb Noach said about himself. Reb Noach Weinberg. He said a story like this. It used to be that Eish Torah. He says the beginning of Eish Torah was like this: that he went to a room near the Kotel, and he had a table. And at the table was him, maybe one other person, and then there was another guy that would get people from the visiting, non-religious Jews that were visiting Israel by the Kotel. So they would go up to the guys that are coming to the Kotel, and they would say, "Hi, how are you?" The guy would say, "Oh, fine. Where are you from? America. Well, you come to visit? Yeah." He says, "Well, maybe you'd like to see a yeshiva." So many times the guy says, "Sure, let's go to yeshiva." So he'd bring him up to Reb Noach. So Reb Noach was sitting one side of the table. He would sit on the other side of the table. So Reb Noach he had these methods for so he would say like this. He said, "Well, let me ask you a question. So what's your goal?" So the guy would say, "What's my goal?" "Yeah, what's your goal?" He says, "Well, I'm planning to go to college." So he says, "Okay, that's good. That's a good goal. Okay, planning to go to college. So why are you planning to go to college?" So the guy would say, "Well, because I have to get a degree, So he said, "Okay, that's good. Getting a degree, college degree. Why do you want to get a college degree?" I skipped a step. I'm sorry. I go back. Wait. I skipped the first step. First step was he would ask them. He would ask them, "Do you live to eat or do you eat to live?" That's the first step. He would challenge them. He says, "Do you eat to live or do you live to eat?" So they would say, "What are you talking about? How can you ask me that? It's so insulting to ask me that. Of course I don't eat to live. Of course I don't live to eat. I eat to live." Again, do you live to eat or do you eat to live? So they would say, "I eat to live." He said, "Okay, that's good." And then he would start asking them, "Now, what's your goal in life?" They would say, "I want to go to college." He would say, "Why do you want to go to college?" They would say, "Well, I want to get a degree." So he would say, "Why do you want to get a degree?" He said, "Well, because I have to make a living." So he would say to them, "So why do you want to make a living?" So they would say, "Well, I have to eat." He would say, "Aha." So they live to eat. So he's pointing out to them they haven't figured out an actual goal. That's not a goal. You said that you eat in order to live, but then when you actually ask them what their goal is, it turns out they're living to eat. So here Rav Kook is explaining that you have to have a better goal than that. You have to think it out. What's after that? And you're eating for what? You're eating in order to bring out Hashem's honor, to serve Hashem, right? All of your actions should be L'Shem Shemaim. That's why I'm doing all those things. Why am I going to college? Why am I getting a degree? Why am I getting a profession? All in order for the sake of heaven. So when you have that as your ultimate goal, so then everything sort of becomes organized in that way. And it gives you a focus in everything you do. Going further. Amnam. Darche hefsid hema. Basher yovad derech v'teakar misiklo amatar hareshit. And the way of, and your feelings go after your goals. Like if you have a goal and you're reaching it, so you feel good. If you have a different goal and you're reaching that, you feel good in a different way. Your feelings are pulled after your thinking. So, Amram, Darke Hefse Behema. So the ways of loss are the following. When a person loses this goal, harig shot, hanafshiot, hein polot, ba'adam. Then the soul, the feelings of the soul start to affect the person. Tachat shahayu pulot el tachat tov, yalu b'tov, yafalu pulatan below tachlit. Kim lefi it orot hakochot hachumrim, shelim et tzadar gashatam tuda, kim nimot hachush shasha. So he's basically like this. I'm not going to go too slow on this, but he says like if you don't have a goal, what happens is you sort of get pulled after the pleasures of the moment. That's what happens. And so you start to become hedonistic, like the lack of the goal. So then every human being naturally wants to feel good and have good feelings. And if he has a goal, so then as he reaches the goal, he feels good about that. If he doesn't have a goal, then he's constantly doing whatever feels good in the moment. Yeah. Ubasher nefesh adam tivchal miliot kaniyah metarefes bloshim matara sharazav et atachid alyona shi ba'or Hashem tebarach v'trachik memena. But when he's like that, when he's living like a hedonistic lifestyle, and he's like a ship that's being rocked around in the sea. He doesn't feel stability. He's unstable. His life is unstable. He has ups and downs. Like sometimes he doesn't feel gratification. Sometimes things don't work out, and then what? And things don't always go well, and he's always in ups and downs. He's like a ship at sea. Then he's going to try to figure out some kind of a goal. And then he might think of some random goal because he has to get out of this instability, complete instability, and that will actually lead him in a bad way. So shleimet anushi v'romamuto, and that's not the perfection of the person. He'll believe in the wrong way. It'll bring him down. Valzeh knows to eila hashisha devarim shebeparshat tzitzit. Shekvua b'kriyash malahashim tachlit hakbalat ol mechushmayim. Mitzvah tzitzit meira al matara haklalit shekol masechi yu l'shem shemayim. So he says that the purpose of tzitzis, reason why we have tzitzis, it says 6 reasons, but the first one is that reminds you that your whole purpose in life should be for the sake of heaven. That's exactly the idea. You look at the tzitzis and it realigns you to this ultimate goal. And so that's the main idea about tzitzis. And it prevents you from going after your eyes and after your heart and making up false goals, being floating around, hedonistic, and it also prevents you from all the false goals. So that we wear the tzitzis in order to keep you aligned with that ultimate goal. So you have to. Rabbi Noach used to say, you have to keep your eye on the ball. So think about what your ultimate goal is. So going back. Okay, we're doing pretty good actually. So that's Rav Kook. So Rav Kook says you have to have one overreaching purpose in life. When you have that, your whole life gets organized. And I think it means to say that you calm down. You can have, this is like trusting in Hashem. Once you know where you're going, then you trust in Hashem to help you get there. Just like Rabbi Nachman is saying, And you'll start organizing your life in order that it will all bring you towards that ultimate goal, And that's always going to be back in your mind. You're not going to go to university in order to get a degree and just stop there. Or to get a degree in order to get a living and stop there. Or get a living in order to get food and then stop there, because then you don't have a real goal. You have to think it through and you have to what's your real goal. Fortunately, when you come to Torah, then we have guidance on what's the ultimate goal. All of your actions should be for the sake of heaven. And so I don't know. So maybe it's a further explanation of what Rabbi Nachman was saying in the beginning. I get up in the morning and I put myself into Hashem's hands. And I said, wherever you'll guide me to do your ratzon, to do your will. means I have this idea that, okay, I'll get up and I'm going to kind of, everything I'm doing is going to be for the sake of heaven. Now that could include going out to play ball. You know, it could include going to college. It could include having a nice conversation with a friend. It could include all kinds of things, you know, as well as learning Torah, as well as doing mitzvah, as well as doing all kinds of things, as doing chesed. Because the main thing is the intention. You know, what if I need a break, and I need to worry about making a living. You know, that we were just talking about this earlier. But you know, so then do that in order to get to that ultimate goal of that it should be for the sake of heaven. But when you have that one goal, so then your whole life gets oriented. So that's what Rabbi Nachman, I think, is calling to mimut. You know, that's called being simple and pure, and it allows you to trust in Hashem, and rather than constantly be calculating and rethinking. Makes sense? It sounds right?
What does it for the sake of heaven mean?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay. So I think that it means the same thing as Rabbi Nachman says over here. He says, what does it mean to be called tamim and pashut? You should ask yourself a question. Will this action bring honor to Hashem or not? So that means you're doing it for the sake of heaven. You know? So, in other words, let's say learning Torah. So whenever you learn Torah, you're bringing honor to Hashem. It's the biggest mitzvah. It has so much in it. It brings so much good into the world, you know. It brings you towards your perfection, which was what it brings you towards wisdom and perfection. So whenever you're learning Torah, you are bringing honor to Hashem. So that's doing something for the sake of Hashem. Or let's say, you know, you get married. You know, so why are you getting married? So you'll have a lot of intermediate goals, like, you know, you don't want to be lonely, you want to have a companion, you know, you want to also fulfill your needs. You have all these kind of but that's not the ultimate goal. You have to mind the biggest goal. The biggest goal is that's going to bring honor to Hashem. You know, how's it going to bring honor to Hashem? Well, first of all, Hashem said we should do that. We have this close relationship, which is Hashem wants. Hashem wants us to have intimacy and love. So I'll have love and intimacy. That's number one. Number two, hopefully we'll have children. And we'll bring more Jews to serve Hashem to the world, and etc. You know, I'll have this unit, all the different things that come out of marriage that will bring kavod to Hashem, honor to Hashem. Or all the things you do, if you make that cheshbon, you have to it's not stop by the intermediate goal, you have to go to the ultimate goal and always have that in mind. And then that's like a life of trust and purity. All right, yeah? Comment? Anyone else? It should be for the sake of heaven. I mean, you have to be you have to work on that a little. Obviously, you can say that and not be really doing that. But Rabbi Nachman seems to be saying if I sort of if I get clear in my heart that that's what I'm trying to do, you know, and even though I'm imperfect, so then I trust in Hashem for the rest. You know, of course, we learn Musar. You know, that's like the Musar movement. Let me clarify my intentions. Let me sort them out. Let me purify them. You know, that's important. But here's a general trusting that if I have the general goal, that my big long-term goal pretty clear or very clear, so then I'm you know, I have to just keep focusing on that. That's the biggest thing. It's going to lead me in the right direction. I'll have more trust in Hashem. Hashem will get me there. What's an example of that? Let me think about this. How do you see that in daily life? An example of this, having the bigger goal in mind. Well, I'll give you another simple example, because let's say a person has a job. Let's say he's making good money on a job and he likes his job. But when he thinks my job should be also l'shem shamayim. I'm going back to the bigger picture here. I want all my actions to be for the sake of heavens. So then he won't overwork. He'll do the job. He'll bring home a paycheck, and he'll go to the base metal. He'll go learn. You know what I mean? He'll have time for his family. You know, and he won't overwork. You know, when people they forget about this example of going after your seichel. And you know, you want to make a lot of money. You know, you enjoy the work, and you're making a lot of money. And then what happens to your family? What happens to your family relationships? Your other relationships? What happens to your Torah? You know what I mean? So that's an example. When you have that in mind, so why am I working in the first place? Okay, anyway. That's sort of everything share, this one. Okay, very good.